Hey, how's it going? I am going to build this object with its measurements in Rhino. This is my first time actually doing audio while I'm building, so hopefully it's helpful. I actually have copies of all of these without the audio. You can always just hit mute too. Okay, so these look like inch measurements to me. So what I'm going to do is go to Rhino, show templates, and I'm going to do small objects in inches and hit new model. This is pretty likely the first thing you've built in Rhino, and so there's a little bit of the interface that takes some time getting used to. A couple changes I want to make, or actually set up so that you can follow along. You'll notice my menus have all these little tabs. That may not show up on yours. So here in Preferences and Themes, select Rhino for Windows to try to follow along. You'll see me grab some things out of there. You also can type in the command line if that works better for you. But I use Rhino for Windows because there's a lot of tutorials online that use the Windows format. So I want my menus to match. Second thing is I want to set up my grid. So you can click on any of these. It's a right click and select grid options. And it looks like it says millimeters, so that's wrong. So let's go ahead and do new using template, small objects, inches. Okay, so I double clicked and that seemed to work. Let's go ahead and start this thing over here and do grid options. And I want to make sure that I have minor grid lines every 1/4 of an inch. And looking at my model, 1/4 of an inch should work fine. This actually, I believe, is an 1/8 of an inch measurement. I think it's like 5/8. Is that right? Yeah, so maybe I want 1/8 of an inch measurements. That'll actually make this a lot easier. So let's do, not calendar. Let's do the calculator again. And let's find what an 1/8 of an inch is in decimal. I believe it's 0.125. Perfect. Okay, so back to my grid options. I want a minor grid line every 0.125 grid lines. And there's 8/8 in an inch. So I'm going to do a major one every 8 grid lines. I'll go ahead and close this and it should fix that. So what I have here is, if I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 1/2 inch, or 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and 8/8. That should make this a lot easier to build. Okay. The next thing I want to do is talk about these viewports. Moving around here a little bit. I use a lot of 2 fingers and then holding Shift key to pan. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is build the outline of the shape. It is at its outermost, before I start cutting pieces off of it, it's 5 inches long, a long ways, and then 3 inches perpendicular to that. So I'm going to make a 5x3 rectangle. And I like to just type. So on my keyboard, I'm typing rectangle. And then I want to make sure that my O snaps are on. I want to make sure that a few of these, I don't think I need end or midpoint or center right now, but intersection is pretty helpful. So I'm going to grab that corner and I'm going to go over 3 inches and I'm going to go up 5. And you'll notice also this keeps track of where your cursor is. And so when I started here, it was 0, 0, and it goes up to this corner, which is 3 and 5. So I have that. I have my base rectangle. Go ahead and rearrange this. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually raise that up out of the ground. So if you go to Solid Tools, and then it's this one here, which is Extrude Curve, it's going to ask you which one do you want. I've only got one. I'm going to click on it, hit Enter. And then it gives you a distance. Now, from my drawing, it looks like it rises up a distance of 1.5, so I'm going to type that in and hit Return. And I have a block. Now, obviously, this block doesn't match this block, but it's the block I can start cutting things from. Go ahead and right-click again on the perspective view, and then you have all these different ways to show the object. So they're shaded. I like going to, I think it's pen, because it's a really interesting way to see these 3D models. And it's starting to look like that, except I need to cut some pieces out. I'll switch back to shaded. That's a pretty good all-together view. And now what I need to do is cut some pieces off the sides here. I'm going to take this side profile and start cutting pieces off. This little angled, 30-degree angled piece here, and then these 2 little 0.5 by 0.625 rectangles on the bottom. So I've got my other views. There's the front view and the right view. And what I'm going to do is just start working on the right view. And what I always like to do before I work is make sure I know where my C plane is. And so I'm just going to draw a line in the right view and make sure that it's actually on that face. And it is. So I know I'm working on the right plane. Everything I do inside this right view window here, I think they call these viewports, should draw directly on that surface. So the first thing I want to do is draw myself a little rectangle that starts in the corner and goes a distance of, I think we said it was 5/8. Oh, now see, it's jumping between these. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. So that grid snap doesn't seem to be working correctly. I wonder if I can affect grid snap. So I'm going to go back to grid options. Yeah, and there it is, snap spacing. So it's snapping every quarter. I actually want it to snap every 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Zoom back out here, and then let's try drawing a rectangle again. So I type rect, hit return. It says, where's the first point? So I'm going to click down, and I'm going to go over to 5/8. And then, actually, let me back up here. This dimension marks the distance from here to here is 0.75. And then this 0.5 actually marks the dimension on the inside here. So really what's left over is a subtraction problem. So it's 1.5 minus 0.75 minus 0.5. So 1.5 minus 0.75 minus 0.5. And I think it should be 0.25. Beautiful. So I need a rectangle that's 0.25 high by 0.625 wide. So back over here, I'm going to type rectangle again. And I think I'm ready to draw it. 5/8 by 1/4. Boom. I'm going to go over to the other side and draw another one. 5/8 by 1/4. Or there's actually a really cool way to do this. I love the mirror command. So let me show you something awesome here. So I'm going to type in mirror. And it says, which object do you want to mirror? So I'm going to click on it, hit return, and then it says, where's the plane? Now, as long as the midpoint O snap is selected and I hover over it, it's going to find the midpoint for me. And I'm going to draw a line representing the midpoint. And what it's going to do is reflect that image across that line to the other side. This can be really useful. You can use it for 2-dimensional drawings and 3-dimensional drawings. Now, let me show you the key to actually using Rhino to cut stuff out. I got a big block now with 2 pieces on the side. I'm going to go back to solid tools and I'm going to extrude that curve and that curve. And then, and counterintuitively, I'm going to go right through the object. So for me, moving my cursor to these other different views allows me to keep track. So I'm going to go to the front view and make sure it goes all the way through the end. I could go a long distance, a little distance. You could actually go right to the edge. I like doing just a little bit more and then click down. So you have what's impossible in the physical world, 2 things occupying the same space, completely overlapping one another. What we need to do now is take the big block minus these 2 rectangular prisms here. So that is called a Boolean difference, and you'll see that up here in the Solid Tools menu. Boolean difference. First question is, what's the object that will be there after you're done subtracting? So there's the big object. Hit return. And then the question is, which 2 things are you subtracting from it? So I'm going to select those 2. Hit return, and it has deleted those rectangular prisms from the overall solid object, that's pretty slick. So I have essentially half of this side done. I need to take care of these little angled pieces on the corner. So I'm going to go do that now. There's lots of different ways to do that. You're going to watch how I do it and immediately think of a faster way to do it when you understand some more of the tools. But I'm showing this method because it was a creative way of thinking about using all the different shapes. And it also allows me to talk about the gumball tool. So in the right view here, I'm going to draw a big rectangle. Way bigger than I need. About like that. That'll work. And then I'm going to click on it, and you're going to see this thing right here, this green line, red line, and so on. If you turn gumball off up here, it disappears. But I'm going to leave gumball on because it allows me to do something really cool. Check this out. So you're going to rotate. Okay. Or if you click on it and then click on that particular rotator, which is I'm rotating around the z-axis, and I say I want to rotate 30 degrees, it's going to shift that thing up. So what I want to do now, wait, is that right? rotating around the center. I don't know if that's right. Does that make sense? Because maybe what I want to do is relocate the gumball to this corner. Is that a rotation of 30 degrees? Let's play with it and see if it makes sense. Also, you can notice down here, it's going to give you the amount of rotation. It's telling me exactly how far I'm rotating. So there's 30 degrees. And then what I want to do is grab this thing and move it down here to an intersection point. Now, zooming in, notice it actually won't move to that intersection point. It won't snap to that grid. So what I'm going to do actually is relocate this gumball, if it will let me do it. And I don't know why it's not letting me relocate. Oh, there it is. I forgot to draw my lines. Okay, so let me show you that again. Edit, redo rectangle. All right, so I moved it, and what you do is you click on this little white dot, relocate gumball, and you pick a corner, and you draw a line, click down, and then draw another line perpendicular to that and draw down. So that puts it in the opposite corner. I'm going to put it back to where it was, relocate gumball. All right, click down, draw, click down, perfect. Now, here's what's really nice about this. I can control my rotation, which I'm pretty sure is the same 30-degree rotation. I could test that. Visually, I struggle with that a little bit. I think I can convince myself mathematically it should be the same. What do you think? All right, I'm going to grab that now, that center point, and hopefully because that's exactly where I've relocated my gumball, it should snap perfectly to the end. Now, I'm sure you've already you figured out what it is that I'm doing with this thing, but I'm going to now take this thing, make a solid out of it, and I'm going to extrude it and do a Boolean difference, right? Just like I did before, and delete that from the side. Now, I went a little fast there. It would have made sense for me to actually recreate that rectangle, rotate to the other side, maybe do a little bit of mirror. I'm going to go ahead and try right now and see if I can mirror some features. So I'm going to back up a step before I did my Boolean difference. And I'm going to try the mirror command again. I'm actually not sure if this is going to work, but if it does, it would be really slick. So I'm going to say mirror that object. Start the plane of the mirror. So I'm going to say you're going to mirror that way. Oh, cool. Well, that's great. That actually saves me a ton of time. So let's go to our Boolean difference and delete both of those now. And I've got my slice. So this is actually really getting close to resembling this. I just have a couple more slices that I need to make. All right, I'm going to work on the front view now and start cutting some things out. But the way that this front view is set up is super confusing with this wireframe view. So I'm going to switch to shaded. It's still a little bit confusing. I wonder if maybe rendered? No, because then I have weird lighting to deal with. How about, I think pen is probably not detailed enough. I don't know, we can try it. Let's give it a shot. Oh no, except I need my grid. All right, let's try technical. There we go. That works great because it hides the lines behind there. Okay, what I need to do now is cut this little slot. And it looks to me like this slot is down. If we could measure from this top line straight down, it would be a distance of 0.75 here. So what I want to do is I want to make a rectangle that is 0.5 inches thick on each side and comes down a distance of 0.75. So there's 0.25, there's 0.5, there's 0.75. So I think, oh shoot, that's 1/4 of an inch. It should come out to that distance right there. So let me try that again. First I want to move a 1/2 inch. So there's 1/8 and 1/4, 3/8 and 1/2. 1/2, beautiful. And then I'm going to go down 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and come over to 1/2. I'm going to check that. And then, yes, you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a curve, a solid out of that, I'm going to extrude it all the way through. I'm going to create a Boolean difference, and I'm going to delete those pieces. So there's my slot. That's pretty cool. My last thing I have to do is draw this hole. Now, it would make sense, I think, to think about using the top view. Watch what happens. We talked about this briefly. I'm going to go ahead and draw a line and think that's going to draw it on the top. But notice it actually puts it right on the bottom. So we got to talk real briefly about C-planes or construction planes. What's happening with the construction plane in each view? Okay, so the perspective actually shows the top construction plane, but then front and right have their own construction planes. And what those allow you to do is when you're in that particular view, you're drawing on that construction plane. Okay, so it's not moving back and forth closer and farther away. It just so happens that, like I showed, the construction plane that's visible in both top view and perspective view is below our object. So really you got a couple options. The easy one for this particular model is just flip it over and draw the dang circle on the bottom and extrude the other direction. But I want to show you how to move your C-planes to make this a little bit easier. You have a lot of different C-planes options up here in the C-planes menu. For me, it makes the most sense to shift the C-plane vertically because of the way this thing lives. But you'll notice if you hover over and hold on for a second, you can set a C-plane to a surface, you can set a C-plane to an object, you can create a brand new C-plane and like rotate it around something. I'm going to use this option, which is set C-plane elevation. I'm just going to lift it up. So I need this C-plane right here. So I'm going to select the top view and I'm going to set the elevation. But real quick before I do that, right now it's along the bottom. How far up do I need to shift it? I'm going to argue that I need to shift it up 0.75 because I need to go this 0.25 and then an additional 0.5 to bring me right on level with this. So let's try that and see if it works. So I'm going to shift the elevation up and I'm going to move it a distance of 0.75. And then again, that easy test is just draw a line and then check to see if it's actually flat on that surface. And it is. So I've elevated my C-plane. I can now easily draw that circle. The first thing I want to do though is draw a couple guidelines in here. I want a line through the midpoint and another line through this other midpoint. And that gives me a location where I can draw my circle. So I'm going to type circle. I'm going to grab that intersection midpoint and start moving out. And then it asks for a diameter or a radius. And I'm pretty sure the number over on the other side is a diameter measurement. Maybe it's a radius measurement. I don't remember how to read those exactly, but I'll just try it. I'll do 1. And yeah, that's way too big. So that wasn't a radius measurement. That was a diameter measurement. So I got to go back, draw that circle again, but instead of having a radius of 1, it needs to have a radius of 0.5. Now to scale, that totally looks right. Okay, so all I need to do now is back to my solid tools. We're going to extrude, select that thing, and then you have an option here. You can go both sides. What's cool about this is you can actually extrude in both directions. Just if it's misbehaving, remember you have that still selected. Boolean difference, outer object, cutting object, and we're done. Now, I have some extra pieces here I don't want. I'm going to delete those guidelines. And then students always have questions about what are these additional lines here? How were they created? Well, it has to do with control points. So if you hit the function key and hold F10, you can turn on what are called control points. And actually, this surface doesn't create any control points. This actually, I lied. It has nothing to do with control points. That's for surfaces. Those lines exist because of the way we constructed the object, and they have to do with individual panels and pieces that can be separated. So if you now preview that it actually looks just like the one that we made, if you go in that perspective view and go down to pen, it looks fantastic. And you can go ahead and add dimensions and all that stuff. I'm not going to cover that in this video, but you could make it match that one on the right. Exactly. So there's the first one. I'm going to do videos for the others. I hope it's helpful.